Welcome back to CF Clips. This is the Chinese Type 54 Tokarev pistol. And I do have Matt here with me today.
What's up, everybody? It's the first time I've seen his face. This is amazing.
So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. You're the expert on all things surplus, in my opinion.
I hesitate to say expert, but I am an avid amateur.
Yeah, especially here at Classic Firearms. You're the biggest fish in a small pond, let's just say that. So with that being said, what can you tell me a little bit about the history of this pistol?
Sure. So the Soviet Union was, doing weapon design both before and after the World War II time period. And Fyodor Tokarev is the Russian designer of the Tokarev design. Now, he was influenced a lot by previous designs, especially John Moses Browning. So this has a very similar operating system to a 1911. It's a Browning style action. So there is a barrel link underneath the barrel that kind of pulls the barrel down out of lock with the slide as it reciprocates back. So they go together for a short distance, the barrel comes down, and then the slide keeps going. Very much like a 1911. It's single action like a 1911, single stack magazine like a 1911. You could think of this as a Soviet 1911.
So what you're telling me is this is a Russian-designed, Chinese-manufactured pistol.
Right, so we didn't get into that. So part of the whole geopolitics of the spread of communism and things like that, Russia would send experts who had design specifications and tooling and things to various countries to support, the establishment of communist governments. And so obviously one of them that we see is China, where they end up producing a lot of kind of Russian designed firearms like the Tokarev pistol or the AK-47 domestically in China, as well as, across Europe, someplace in Africa, stuff like that. So the Type 54 is the Chinese version of the TT-33. So the TT-33 is the original Russian designation. Type 54 is the Chinese designation. And other than that, it is basically a clone copy. So 7.62 by 25 caliber Tokarev, the 8-round standard single stack magazine. Again, no real bells or whistles. There's not even normally a manual safety. There is a kind of half-cock position you can carry it in to keep it safe.
So let me kind of show. Now, one thing I did also notice, speaking of safeties and precautions, in the trigger here, you have a trigger safety. And I've just not seen that in something this old before. I mean, you go to Canik, you can go to a lot of the Turkish guns. They all have trigger safeties, and not even just the Turkish ones. Some of the higher end guns do too. But it's just weird to see it on something like this.
So that is a modern affectation, basically. It's a requirement for the gun to have a manual safety in order to be imported into the United States. And so various importers have worked around this different ways. A lot of times you would actually see where they would mill out a hole in the frame and add a manual safety lever, and it was sort of almost a Beretta style safety lever back here, right?
I think I've seen a couple. I think we've done a video on those here at CF Clips.
So more recently, a lot of importers, in order to make no permanent alterations to the original design, have decided to kind of go with this sort of Glock style blade trigger safety. And what that means is that once it's here in the United States and it's your gun as an individual, you could theoretically replace this trigger with an original trigger and have a completely factory normal gun.
Interesting.
But so, you can see there is kind of this little half cock there.
I do see
so that would be a way that you could carry this without any worry about it firing inadvertently. But being that it's single action, I mean, you would, also normally have to cock that fully in order to fire it the first time anyway. So, it is kind of interesting that, due to our requirements to bring the firearms into the country, we've had to add this feature. Another really cool thing about it is that there's actually, in general, there's a broad ban on the importation of non-shotguns from China. And so the reason why we can get these is because they have gone to a third-party country and had a cooling off period before they're able to be imported in the United States. So, that's another kind of interesting fact that this had to take a little vacation somewhere else before it could come here.
I mean, depending on where it is, that might be kind of nice. So, I mean, when you're talking sights, you have front post. There is no dot on there like you might expect on a more modern pistol. And the rear sight appears to be, what is that, welded in there? Or is it actually molded in there?
No, it's actually just dovetailed in there. Now,
just dovetailed in there.
It is mostly a fairly tight fit.
Yeah.
So, but you could theoretically drift it slightly if you have one of those little vices that kind of push it back and forth.
Yeah.
But in general, these things are sighted in by an armorer, then issued, and then you're not expected to adjust it in the field.
It's a very tight fit. Like, it honestly does look like it's a part of that slide, like, permanently. But sorry, go ahead.
No. So, again, these are fixed height sights. They're not adjustable.
Yeah.
They're not. You can theoretically drift the rear sight, but it's intended to be set by an armor and then left alone.
Fair enough. And a note as well, this whole pistol is metal with the exception of these grips here. Now, is there any variations on the grips? I know sometimes we'll get in like a surplus and they'll have some variations of both pistol and grip.
Yeah, so most commonly you'll see these grips that have the star in the middle. Sometimes you'll see grips that have similar vertical striations but no star. It's just the vertical striations. Other than that, we don't typically see a ton of variation in Tokarev grips. Now, we do see sometimes that people will make their own custom grips, and occasionally, because these are used pistols, we'll come across a pistol that has this kind of very unique grip. But
so with that being said, I want to go ahead and just kind of close out a little bit here by giving you an idea what that trigger pull feels like. So obviously, that trigger safety does have a pretty hardy spring in it. And then you get back, there is some take up. It's a little bit gritty, but that's kind of what I expect. A little bit of lube will probably help that up. And then bang. It is a pretty hardy pull that you got to do to get to that to go bang. But I mean, again, that's going to be very good for like a duty style pistol almost. Like you're going to be safe with that thing. It's not going to just pull without you wanting it to.
Yeah, I mean, again, considering the design was made for military service, this is not a competition style gun. Even though it is single action, it's not designed to be like a super fast, lightweight trigger. And primarily, like many Russian designs, it was really made for ease of mass manufacture. They wanted to be able to crank a lot of these things out. And so that was a real big influence on how the gun is designed and built.
Fair enough. Is there anything else that we maybe have missed on this one?
I would like to just maybe show the camera real quick some of these Chinese markings. I'm not sure, depending on how the light hits this, how well that will show up. But so there's certainly, I really think that the Chinese markings are really interesting. But no, just like I was saying, there's a bunch of countries that kind of produce this all over the Soviet bloc, and the Chinese one is interesting in that we don't see a lot of Chinese-made firearms here in the States. But other than that, really faithful reproduction of something like the TT-33 or the TTC from Romania, or something like that.
Yeah, and we've seen a couple of those come through here recently too. But with that being said, if you have any experiences with any sort of Chinese Tokarev pistol, please leave a review down below. We would love to see your comments there. That is all I have for you today. Do you have anything else?
That sounds all I have.
All right, well, say it with me. It is time to end.